Welcome back to the show again, guys. I'm your host, Sheldon Oscar.
And I'm Joe Collins.
And today we're going to be talking about mental health and the state that the country's in at the minute, or even the world, in how mental health's affecting a lot of people and what the reasons for it. And we're going to break it down in more detail. Now, I don't know if you know, but Joe, my co-host, is expert in this field and he's got a lot to say. So, Joe, I'm going to let you kick it off, mate. Where we at?
Well, what's causing it? I think the messaging behind it has got a bit lost, and people, as we go back to looking at ourselves from thousands of years ago, our brain had these things in it, to protect us from saber-toothed tigers, to, fear, anxiety, to help us, to move us in certain directions, to protect us. And then now we don't have to deal with that problem of being attacked. We have other things that cause us this anxiety. Then we try and hide away from it and try and wonder why it's happened to us, when really it's a signal from our brain. If you're feeling anxious, what are you feeling anxious about? Is it the people you're hanging around with at the weekend? Is it your job? Is it your relationship? What's making you feel that? And then we try and go to, like, trying to paper over it. We go to drink, drugs, we go to taking pills, we go to food, to try and hide away, like, I feel anxious, I don't want to feel like that, when really it's our brain's way of trying to help us.
Yeah. I agree with that. I say, like, we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago about it, didn't we? And I remember you got a little bit upset about it. Like, you was like, I don't like the way you're saying that sort of stuff. The wording you're using, in a sense of, if we was to talk to somebody else who didn't quite know who we were and our views, they could easily get it mixed up. And what I mean by is, my understanding of depression, personally, is that it's just another emotion or a state of mind that you get in when things aren't going too great. You feel pressured, or you overthink things that are happening in the future, and you feel sad, and it's sort of a state of sadness. You know what I mean? Or like a where you feel you're vibrating quite low. You've got low mood, and it's not something that lasts forever, unless it's not something that lasts forever. It's it's like happiness. Do you know what I mean? Because if you was completely depressed all the time, like in my mind, how I interpret this, like, this is not to sort of say this is exactly it. So please don't have no Karens kicking off and jumping in, messaging me. What I mean is that if you was always depressed, you couldn't laugh or be happy in that state at all ever. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're like, people are labeling clinically depressed, but yet you can go and be around your friend and be happy. Do you know what I mean? And, like, genuinely be happy and have a laugh. But then you go on by yourself, and then when you're on your own, you're reminded that, my life's a bit shit, or something's missing, or I feel a bit empty, or whatever that might be. We can probably cover that in more detail in a minute, but it's a sense that, like, you're reminded by something which is a lack of unfulfillment. So in that sense, like, I'm just trying to identify the fact that if you was clinically depressed, as the label sort of says, there would be no emotional change. It'd be like, in my mind, I'm interpreting it. Now, again, I've never had depression, so I can't say, this is what depression is, or that's what depression is. The way I see things is, I've built purpose in my life, and I've built so much confidence and self-belief in my life, I don't ever feel like I could get clinically depressed. I feel like it's just a label that people tend to own. Do you know what I mean? And that they buy into the fact that they are depressed. But when I look at those sort of people, I personally would identify very differences in my character and their character, in the sense of I find purpose in my life, and I've put myself into positions where I've had to build this self-belief. What do you think about that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head about being clinically depressed. I mean, I was given a label at 16, 17 of having psychosis, and it was something I didn't have and made me feel worse. And I think when we label ourselves, it becomes worse. I like to call it a state of mind, like a warning signal, a call to action. Like, say, if you feel anxious, but say something big's going on in your life, somebody's died, you've lost your best friend, you might be spending more time in that state because something horrible has happened. But like you say, you go out with your friends, you feel better, you train, you feel better. So if something really bad has happened, you might spend more time in that state, but that means you'll have to do more things that get you out of that state.
To take your mind off thinking about that same reoccurring thing.
So if all these things have gone on, like I said, the day's a long day, mate. You can't just train and expect yourself to feel good for the rest of the day. You need to train, you need to have a job you love, you need to have friends you can talk about and make you feel good. You need to have other purposes, you need to help people to make you feel good. Your day's got to be full of things that make you feel good. put you in a positive state. So
Yeah,
I do
I
agree
agree.
with what you're saying about that. So it's like a state of mind. That's not to say we're not telling people you can just switch it off like that and be done with it.
Yeah.
You can do things right now that make you feel better for an hour, but then you're going to need to find something else to make you feel better for the next hour, something positive, or you might need to go and speak about it and understand what's going on. You're going to have to do lots of different things, especially if something really bad's happened, to get you out of that state that you're in. Like I say, sometimes bigger things happen and you spend more time in that state naturally because they've been horrible, they've been shocking. You know, someone's died, lost a
Like
kid,
you lost a
car crash.
parent, and
Yeah.
it's that you sort of, there's an empty void in your life because your life revolved around
Massive,
that person, or there was a big part of your life. So they're always there. Yeah, of course.
So, and that'll take a bit of time to build your life back up to where you're in, spending more time in a positive state. So I do agree with what you're saying, and that the labels don't help. And there's, you know, in the society there's so many labels. I was speaking to somebody the other day and they're like, I've got, you know, personality disorder, eating disorder, and I'm like, you've not. This is what happens when you're anxious. You either turn to food one way or don't eat. Your brain looks for a control mechanism. When you're anxious and fearful, it feels out of control. It looks for something to make it feel safe. That's when people go on about OCD. It's something the brain's looking for to make them feel in control. They don't feel in control. And instead of doing something positive like training, clears the head out, make you feel better, having a conversation, it goes to cleaning all the time to make you feel like it's in some form of control. And that's what they do with food. We'll either go to eating too much, so you get a short-term little boost, then you can think more clearly for that minute, or you'll go the opposite and you'll avoid eating to make you feel in control that way. So I definitely don't think the labels are helping it. Instead of just looking at it as in a state of either feeling anxious, and why you're feeling anxious, let's deal with it, how do we deal with it, or a state of feeling low or depressed, and what can you do to make yourself feel happier, to go against that. I do think with that terminology it was speaking about could actually change the game in it. Do you agree?
I definitely think, you know, the way it's looked at is definitely seen as like a disease that you catch in the middle of the air. Do you know what I mean? Like you step in the wrong alley and there's a gust of wind and you've caught depression. It's definitely not, you know, come about like that. But there's something that's causing it. So definitely. And I think the identifying of it doesn't help. Do you know what I mean?
Of course,
How it's sort of portrayed to people. So I do agree. I do agree in what you're saying there. So in my mind then, like, what do you think the causes are for like this like mass epidemic of depression in this country? Because not just in this country, the Western society. Because like I spoke to many people before, especially people that come from like outside of Western civilization. For example, like in like poorer countries. Do you know what I mean? Like let's just say like Africa or places. Like Kurdistan, like, you know, where Kyle was saying, exactly. Like, you won't really see depression in those places of like famine or stuff like that, or even just outside of the West in general. You know, it's not. It's only rife as much over here because we've got such a different culture or outlook. Do you know what I mean? So why do you think we've got it so bad? Why is these sort of things so bad over here?
Phones.
You reckon phones?
Instant gratification, isn't it?
Yeah, validation as well. It's all like, I think very similar. It's like more of an external thing. We're not looking at sort of. There's less disconnect with people. I think we disconnect from ourselves and like what we're really here for. Like I don't think many people ask that simple question of why we're here. Like how did we get here? Do you know why? Like do you know what I mean? And that ties into having a purpose.
I think maybe we're thinking we're supposed to have it a bit easier and it's all supposed to be handed on our plate, but life, like we say, is about going through challenges, having knocks, failing, getting back up and building a confidence in yourself, because that's the only thing that's ever going to make you feel good, is yourself progressing. And we've lost that message. You know, we think we're supposed to get a bit easier, or we're not supposed to have been bullied, we're not supposed to have been knocked down or beaten up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going through them things and, you know, feeling anxious for a bit, feeling depressed, and building on it. We've lost that message of how to have a good life and what the meaning of life's about. But when you go back to these other countries where, you know, they are working hard all day, and I suppose, I say faith's still a big thing there. We speak about, you know, like Cower before, and that was the old message with faith, is in life's not supposed to be dead easy. You're supposed to get through the challenges in life, you know, learn from them, grow from them, and go to a better place, as faith would say. And that message in our life has sort of gone, where we lost our faith and it's all about, let's say, instant gratification, things coming a bit easier, and this shouldn't happen to me, why's that happened to me, it's such your body's fault, blaming other people. And then you think the world's this big horrible place and why all these things happen to me, when it's not. The world is here to get the best out of you. You know, you become this man you are now because you've been through so much. I've sat in this conversation with you now because I've messed up and come through things and dealt with them in a positive way. They've all been big gifts, really, but people have lost seeing that. They think these things shouldn't happen to them.
Because life's about being happy all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah.
I don't think I've never met anybody that's happy all the time. Like in that perpetual state of euphoria or something like that. So why do you think, like you're saying, the phones are a bit of an issue?
I think people are so used to instantly getting that feedback or like that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That like there's only so much of that you can rely on to make you feel good.
Yeah.
In the end, you're not going to get everything you need from your phone, but that's, you look at like people and all they want is all the information, all the conversation.
Yeah.
And it leads to anxiety as well, because people aren't actually interacting with people because they're just texting everyone.
Yeah.
But and instead of going for that big dopamine hit of overcoming something really challenging, you know, like smashing the business, this podcast, getting millions of views, just stuck on that, the little one.
I think in that, because in what you both said there, it's the human connection.
Yeah.
I think people just lost connection with like human interaction. I mean, I noticed from when I was a kid, you know, what was the things you did as a kid? You go out and play on the front. You'd interact with other kids. In school, you'd interact with other kids. And it's not like kids don't interact, but I mean, for example, I go to the gym now and I see a couple of lads train together. They both got headphones. And like one's doing a set and he's got his headphones on, and the other one's sat on the floor and he's got headphones on. I think, well, what's the fucking point of coming with somebody? Like, you've got your headphones. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like, from my observations, a lot of people that have got like a disconnect with other humans. And at the same time, because there's such emphasis, like you said, on your phone and looking externally for validation, if it's girls on Instagram or whatever, if it's just social media in general, or if it's searching for something and you're constantly looking for some sort of purpose or this dopamine hit, like there's this constant disconnect from yourself because you're always looking externally for something. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's something missing. I need to be entertained, and it's a lot of that is looking for some sort of entertainment or this unfulfilled boredom. Do you know what I mean? This unfulfillment in life. And I think it ultimately, it's sort of, I can't put my finger on it, but it's almost like men have not really got that same drive no more. There's not much of there's not really, I think with the rise of technology, it's taken away quite a lot from the modern man having a purpose in life. Do you know what I mean? Having something to do, like everything was hand built. We're talking about 50, 60, 70 years ago, you know, talking at the beginning of the 19th century, and now we so rely on so much technology, even our phones, like everything, you know, we've got the radio, we've got the television, we've got like the telephone all in one device now. It's sort of like everything's instant, do you know what I mean? There's nothing that's built up, there's no need to build skills, and again, it just feels like there's a lack of purpose in a lot of people. And I think when men have got a lack of purpose, it then presents itself in a family household. Do you know what I mean? And then that becomes dysfunctional because the woman then has to pick up from where the man should be that sort of rock, that centerpiece of the family. Do you know what I mean? If this is making sense. And when the man is in the wrong position in his role, or is not sort of like stepping up, the woman's doing all this. The women are now providing all the money. Do you know what I mean? Like the women are getting educated in schools. Men aren't really sort of, as a whole, as a general, men aren't really sort of like upholding a certain standard. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a lot more men that top themselves over women. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not really a right thing for women to top themselves. It's more for men. But then you can also talk about, well, men don't speak out. Women tend to speak more.
Because that's more emotional.
They're more a social sort of creature, whereas men tend to keep it inside and just focus on the doing.
I think that men put all the pressure on themselves whereas women distribute it better, whereas men just take them, but I need to have this on my shoulders. I need to do this myself.
And if they're not dealing with it, they go and put it behind a pint of beer and try and forget about it that way and think, you know, it's weak to deal with it any other way. And then, you know, as we see time and time again, drink and drugs, 90% of the suicides are infiltrated around them.
I personally sort of hear what you're saying. Like, you're very big on like speaking about problems, aren't you? Or like things that are heavily burdened on you. I myself have, although I agree in some capacity, of speaking to somebody, if you've got something that's weighing you so much, I think men should speak to other men.
Oh yeah,
I don't not that you shouldn't speak to your partner or anything like that. You definitely should. I'm not trying to say that, but like I think men deal with things a lot different to women and get on with things a lot better by holding on to stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it can be used as fuel or motivation. But the use of drink and drugs to try to take the edge off, then lead to a spiraling
100%,
down, you know, down a wrong dark path.
Yeah, of course.
You know, when something is very heavy on you, then you know, you speak about something, you get over it, right? Get back on the fucking horse, let's crack on again.
Yeah, I suppose it's having, some people won't have somebody round them who can have a positive chat to or give them the right feedback, you know, until they've been on this journey. They might be with a load of idiots hanging round and in a bad place and go to turn to them like, just crack on with it. Because I remember it when I was in a bad place drinking and drugs. I said to someone, I'm often coming out tonight in the best of place. They're like, oh, you'll be alright after a line. I'm like, what am I dealing with? You know what I mean? So it's, if they've got a man round them who's good piece of advice, defo the biggest winner. Unfortunately, at some stages I didn't. And some stages people don't have. So then, you know, do they go and see a professional for somebody if they struggle? If they've got nobody else that's going to have a positive impact on them, do they go and see a professional? Because well, you know, a therapist to have somebody who has a positive impact on them and they can bounce something off instead of going to the mates and say, have a pint, have a line and crack on. You know what I mean? That's a difficult one too, isn't it?
Where does that road, where does that road lead down though? We're talking about this now in terms of like the common therapies or the common interventions to try to help deal with depression or medication. Or go see a therapist. I mean, what's your experience of that, and what's your thoughts on medication as a
what I'm seeing a lot of is so many people come to me looking for help, struggling. They've been to doctors, also getting told antidepressants the only way out. See so many people on antidepressants and feeling no better. See so many people on antidepressants, the side effects are actually making them feel worse. And I've been doing everything I can to try and find answers on this because, like I say, lost 4 friends to suicide, it's getting worse. But if things are getting worse, you don't keep dealing with it the same way. You don't keep saying antidepressants. If you want things to change, you have to take massive action and massive change. So the more studies I look into, the more I look into it. Sounds like we've been lied to, and these drug companies have just pushed the results through that suited them to make the money off them. And you know, it's making things actually worse. And all the studies, if you want to look into Irving Kersh's work, you wanted to look into the book Sedated, are showing that antidepressants are just a placebo effect. So they just make a certain amount of people feel good because they think it's supposed to make them feel good. And it's actually showing that people on long-term antidepressants actually have a lesser chance of getting better. It actually increases, the FDA said, it increases the chances of young adults feeling suicidal taking antidepressants, which I found quite upsetting really, considering it's the main cause of treatment. And study after study is showing that, like I said, they're just a placebo. And if you want to take them just for a little bit of a boost and you go out and try and find your purpose, start going to the gym, get a different social circle, that's fine, they might work, but don't sit on them and expect them to turn your mental health around, because they won't. You cannot fix something mental, something that's wrong with your life, a problem with your life, by a pill. It's like going to the gym and expecting to take a fat burner and doing nothing else. It's just not going to work. You've got to, you can't paper over it. You've got to face up as scared as you are to that area of your life that's not working and work on it. Get help on it, get a mentor, get a PT, find out how to deal with it and attack it and face up to your fears, which will make you then feel more confident in yourself and will heal you.
Well, it's the same thing though. If you're doing something over and over again and nothing's changing, well then is it really a fix, or is it just a crux? Is it just a what they call now? I can't think of the name. Crutch.
Crutch.
A crutch. Do you know what I mean? Because like doing something over and over a time, it's just sort of like a band-aid. It's not really masking anything. And then you're talking about, as you've sort of seen in your research, that well, it's just got a sort of a placebo effect. You think you're dealing with it, but really it's just giving you something to make you think you're doing something. Do you know what I mean?
And I've not found anyone who just takes antidepressants, doesn't do anything different in their life and becomes better. It doesn't work. And then looking at the facts, 1 in 4 people now take antidepressants in this country, which has increased over the last 20 years, but then the suicide rate has gone up 15%. So obviously it's not working.
Yeah, it seems to be going the other way.
It's going the other way. So if you want things to change, you don't want to keep doing the same thing. It's not working. So I think it's about time we dealt with it differently. We spread the message differently. Otherwise, the suicide rate's going to keep getting worse.
Yeah.
But people don't want to talk about these things. People want to think that there is an easy way out instead of facing up to those struggles and facing up to what they've got to deal with.
Of course.
And facing the fears and going out and finding solutions. People want to think that it will heal them, and unfortunately it won't. I can't find one person who by itself it's healed. There might be people who took it and then gone and worked on the fitness, gone and worked on the confidence, found a purpose and then weaned off it. Yeah, that might have helped, but people alone who've just took it and done nothing usually just stay on it, and then when they try coming off, it's like coming off any other drug, coke, heroin. The side effects are that bad, they think they're relapsing and slip back into the same holes and think, oh, I must need it now, I'm still depressed, I must need it. And it's not, it's just you're trying to come off a drug, which is a very strong drug.
That you've been on for years.
Yeah.
Well, on that same topic, I've got a little story. My mum has recently been in the hospital with heart issues.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, she was in hospital, and I don't know if it was a misinterpretation, but one of the doctors that was basically helping her, treating her,
Yeah.
was foreign, and he said half of her heart had died.
Right.
Now, I mean, that in itself, he probably didn't mean to interpret it that way, but basically said that her heart's failing and something's wrong with her heart. She's had stents put in, but she traced it back to antidepressants.
Yeah.
And on that, it actually says in the small print of the description, may cause heart issues over long-term use or something like that. And so and she spoke to her doctors and so on and said, it could be these that are affecting. And they don't want to say, it's definitely that,
of course,
it's putting liability on that, but she stopped taking them now. So what's that saying then?
It's scary,
it's that again, we're sort of fixing one issue, or we think we're fixing one issue and create another one.
Yeah,
what I mean? That could have killed my mum now.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what's that for diagnosing something that you're now telling me is a fucking placebo?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's scary, really, and upsetting, isn't it? And we might have these people to talk about it.
So what would you say then would be like more of an answer to sort of try to, or what would you suggest people do? I mean, I've got my sort of thoughts that I think. What would you think?
Well, they're probably the same. So, say we're going about the antidepressants, or people might use them as a little pick-me-up. Well, what do we do to pick ourselves up? We go to the gym. I know not everybody's into the gym, but let's try, or if you're not into going to the gym, go for a walk, go for some cold therapy, which then gets you in a better state. Then go and work out how you're going to deal with your problems. Don't just get up in the morning, lie in, not have your breakfast and think, I'm going to deal with this relationship that's giving me anxiety, or this friend group. Get yourself into a better state, so you take more positive, risky decisions, and then you're more likely for it to change. So change your state first. I do it every morning. I get up, I do a gratitude routine, get some music on, think of things I feel grateful for. Then I'll sit there and spend 3 minutes thinking of my goals, things I want to achieve. So already before the day's problems have come at me, I'm in a good state. I go out for a walk, and then later in the day, because things happen, then we train. And then, I'm in a good state again to deal with anything that's coming up. So, firstly, you've got to get in a good state, so you're more likely to take risky and positive decisions. Then, start dealing with what's going on and facing up to it, and, building your confidence, working on yourself, getting around some good people. Because your environment's a massive thing. Studies say 90% of your environment is what you are. And it makes it a hell of a lot easier to grow, to develop yourself. That positive feedback around you will make getting out of your mental health struggles a lot easier.
Mate, I agree with you completely. I think definitely there's other answers, and I think fitness has definitely got a lot to play in it.
Massively.
In terms of it's got to be a better answer than taking a tablet. If you want to get better, you've got to sort of take action, whether you like it or not.
You've got to fight for yourself, and you owe it to yourself.
And I think when you sort of see some positives in anything that you're not liking or whatever, you start to like it more anyway, and you sort of teach yourself to. So anyway. Thanks for joining us, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the session, and you've taken a lot of value from it. It's been interesting to have another chat with Joe again. Stay tuned in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Comment below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. And Joe, you have anything now?
No, just let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to talk about. If you've got any questions on anything we've spoken about, please drop us a message. We'll be happy to help you.
Definitely. If you agree or you disagree, put your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your comments, and stay tuned for the next show. Take care.